Polling Canada has just released some very interesting data showing exactly why Canadians are leaving Canada or thinking of leaving Canada. They've broken it down to 10 points, and now we have some actual data with percentage bases seeing exactly why Canadians are leaving, and it's quite sobering. And in terms of how does this relate to the real estate market in Canada and Vancouver as a whole, we already know the market is soft. We already know that big banks are not anticipating any help with rate reductions for the remainder of the year. And if we see these big mass exodus in terms of people leaving Canada and specifically Vancouver, when we already have a soft market, that is not a good thing for overall pricing here in the Vancouver region. So we're going to go over those 10 points, go over an overview of Vancouver and what to expect moving forward here in Vancouver as a whole. So we're going to bring up the tweet here from Polling Canada, and you can see here reasons for considering leaving Canada. And there's 10 spots here. And as to no surprise, number one on the list at 60% is just Canada is too expensive. So we're going to walk through all these points here. Obviously, we know that it is very expensive to live here in Canada. With inflation, it's making everything a lot more difficult. You have to earn that much more money to be able to get into something. And with the global markets, especially if you're living back east with the tariffs and the trade issues, and unemployment as a whole in Canada and Vancouver continues to go up. And if you have to work so much harder just to afford a loaf of bread, let alone housing, it is quite daunting for a lot of people. And that is obviously why it's number one on the list here. And when we look at number two here, taxes are too high at 55%. And that is a huge problem here in Vancouver as well. Our tax system here in BC is so incredibly high, and it's leading a lot of people to go down south to those tax-free states such as Nevada or Florida or Arizona. And the other problem is not only is the government taking so much money, and we know that they don't spend it properly, of our own hard-earned dollars. The real issue here as well is in terms of entrepreneurs and businesses wanting to operate in Canada as well as BC and Vancouver alone. If we don't have tax incentives or tax shelters for these businesses, they are not going to want to operate here. And where it's problematic is that we don't create jobs. And when we have the data coming in terms of unemployment continuing to rise, we need businesses and we need entrepreneurs here. And I know that a lot of people want to attack these big businesses and tax them and make them contribute in this massive way. And we got to be careful about that, because if we tax them too much, they're not going to want to invest in our country. We're not going to be able to have those jobs. So we do need to be careful with that. And that's also another reason why this is number two on the list. When we drop down to number three, it feels Canada is heading in the wrong direction on a lot of things at 45%. And I think that's really not too interesting. We know with this previous federal election, it was almost a 50-50 split. So we know that 50% of Canada was not going to be happy with the direction of how things are going. And with this ongoing trade war with the states, where we are still in a position here where we don't know where we're going. Donald Trump just suspended all trade talks with Canada, and then today at time of recording, we just reversed our digital tax on them to try to bring them back to the table. So we are definitely in a way of uncertainty. And I know in the real estate market, my prognostication is, we could be in a very slow market from 12 to 18 months, maybe 24 months. But if we really look at what's going on, especially with the presidency down south, we could have a very slow economy and slow real estate market for the remainder of the term. He's a wild card. His changes have a direct impact of us here in Canada. And just look back east, there are thousands of people who've lost their jobs. We're a lot luckier here on the West Coast. We're one of the more major cities not as affected with these trade dilemmas. But this stuff, when it's continuing on, is going to have a problem here for us here in Vancouver as well. So as we go into number four, to live in a nicer place at 35%. And I know that people here in Vancouver specifically, Vancouver is not as pretty and clean as it used to be. I know I get a lot of pushback when I say that Vancouver is beautiful. It definitely is not the same city as it was during the pandemic. And things such as garbage, things such as homelessness, things such as addiction and mental health issues have plagued Vancouver and major cities all across Canada. And people are scared. I know that it's not as clean, it's not as tidy, and people are wanting a different shot here. And when we look at a nicer place to live at 35%, that's pretty interesting, because Vancouver, as well as Canada as a whole, is always ranked near the top in terms of the most beautiful and most livable cities. And when 35% of people polled are saying that they want somewhere else that's nicer, People need to really take that into account, and that is not something that we should be proud of. And politicians need to look locally at how to secure the places that we live, and not in terms of just crime and mental health, but just how people operate as a whole in terms of taking care of each other on a community basis as well. At 31% wanting to try somewhere different, I think that's totally fair. If you are giving it a go here and it's difficult, I think that's a pretty normal thing to perceive at 31%. At 26% is a little bit interesting here. Too many restrictions, not a free country. And, specifically here in BC, we know that the NDP government with David Eby has taken a lot of regulation under their oversight. Even here with realtors, we don't have the oversight that we used to. We have the province overseeing our profession. I know with lawyers and lawmakers, they want to take oversight within that as well. Not to mention in terms of rental properties and housing policies, they are taking a lot of these things under their control, and a lot of people don't like that. People want to be able to feel like they have some freedom. And I know an argument is made that too much restriction is going to homeowners or people who live here, and there's not enough onus in terms of the big things that are plaguing us, like mental health and crime here. As we move down the list here, levels in crime and disorder, 26%. I thought that number should be a lot higher, especially here in Vancouver. The amount of random violent attacks are becoming more and more increasingly. Just yesterday, I was walking to church, and there were two people arguing with a male just badgering this woman in the face for about a block, and he finally took his hands on her and grabbed her and started pushing her, and I yelled for him to stop. And his immediate reaction, instead of saying sorry or just stopping that, he immediately came into me. He immediately got right into my face. He threatened to kill me. He said he was going to find me. He's going to end me. And I essentially stood my ground here and said, hey, you cannot put your hands on anyone, especially a woman, and she needs to have some help. And these instances here are happening more and more, where you're having a lot more people scared to speak out. And if we're not speaking out because we're scared, it's just a sign here that a society is beginning to degrade and degrade and degrade. Because as I was watching this, no one was standing up for this woman. And even though these were transient people, they still deserve dignity, and nobody should be abused or threatened in that manner. And that's the sad state of affairs. People are just really scared with these random attacks. And I'm actually surprised that in terms of levels of crime at 26%, I would think that this number should be a lot higher, and it would be interesting if this poll was city specific, if that would change here in Vancouver. At 25%, better employment and career opportunities, kind of highlighted this already, but unemployment continues to rise. There's just not as much opportunity here across Canada and Vancouver as a whole, and that is something why people are wanting new opportunities here. Family reasons at 9%, and other reasons, whatever those might be, is at 18%. So how does this relate to Vancouver as a whole? And you can see here with these Vancouver market specifics, and we're speaking about unaffordability and the market softening. If people continue to leave and people don't have job options, and you can see here with the Metro Vancouver price point on average exceeding $1.1 million, you can see that Vancouver here is one of the most globally expensive cities. This is going to continue to soften the market here. People are leaving, people don't want to have the funds to be able to purchase, and we continue to have more and more inventory and it's lagging to sell. That is going to start to put downward pressure on the market. And we know that a lot of the major banks now are stating that they don't believe the Bank of Canada is going to do any rate reductions here for the remainder of 2025. We know that most commentators agree that we need about 3 to 4 25 basis point reductions to get the market going and to get some more confidence here in the real estate market. But if this lags, and we know that for the remainder of the year there's not going to be help, it's going to take some time to get those 3 to 4 drops. We are going to be in a market that's going to continue to be soft, and if there's more people exiting out, that means there's going to be more opportunities for you as buyers and a lot more pain here for you as sellers. So finally going through this here, active property listings have reached over a 10-year high, and like I said, rapidly a softening of markets. And we just don't know also down south what Donald Trump is going to do from one day to the next. And even if we get some of these rate reductions and things start to go nicely in terms of getting back to the table with these trade deals and trying to remove these tariffs, things can change very, very quickly. So I think buyers and sellers here, you still got to be quite cautious. I think if you are a first-time home buyer or upsizer, I think this is a great opportunity for you. But if you're a seller, you have to really evaluate evaluate why you're wanting to sell and if this does make sense. If you're a downsizer, you definitely should not be doing that unless you absolutely have to, or maybe you have a great equity position in your home. But for those who are purchasing right now, you also have to think of this list. Is your job secure? Is this a place that you really want to call home? Because if you are purchasing and you're thinking you may want to leave in the next 5 to 6 years, I think you're at a lot of risk. I'm telling all my buyer clients right now, if you are wanting to purchase, you better have some long-term holds in terms of at least 5 to 7 years to hold that property, to make sure that it can have some appreciation, that if you need to sell, that you can be in an equity position. A lot of the people that I've been working with or speaking with who have bought, since 2019, 2020 and above that, they're mostly are losing money, and we just want to make sure that doesn't happen to you. So again, to wrap this up, so if you're a buyer or seller and you're needing help to navigate this market or some future planning and some strategy, just book into my calendar below in the discovery call or the QR code below. You can get into my calendar and we can get on a 30-minute call to help you get through some of the noise in the market. It is quite challenging right now. But until the next one, thank you so much, and I'll see you later.